through the windows of the Renault and got under his skin. Up here, the road was nothing more than two rutted dirt tracks, and the car bumped forward over the emerald-colored hills. He didn't have to go far. Not even a mile later, he spotted the chalet, the meeting point. It was built of wood and flagstone, with an A-frame roof and huge windows on all sides looking up toward the mountains and down toward the distant valley and lake. 3 other vehicles were parked outside, 2 dark SUVs and a sleek Ferrari in a metallic color that looked like deep purple. One man stood in the tall grass, a semi-automatic rifle level at his waist. A man? No, he was barely more than a boy. 19 years old. David knew him as a student in his modern language class. His name was Gunther, from Mannheim, son of the number 3 executive at one of Germany's largest auto manufacturers. He was the kind of boy who would have money and power handed to him based on nothing more than his family pedigree. Someday, he'd be CEO of that company. Gunther. Jesus. Gunther was one of them? But Nash had said Le Renouveau was a hungry spider, trapping the young European elite in its web and wrapping them up to use them in the future. That was why it had to be infiltrated. That was why it had to be destroyed. The others were inside. They were waiting for him. David parked his beat-up Renault next to the Ferrari. It was a 458 Italia hardtop model. As he got out, he noticed that the plum-colored sports car had no registration plate. That was the kind of detail Nash had told him to watch. Gunther met him as he got out of the car, with the rifle pointed at his chest. "Willkommen," the boy said, but the welcome had no warmth. "Hello, Gunther." "Bitte keinen Namen, nicht hier." David nodded. No names. It didn't matter that they knew each other. Up here, no one had names. "Haben Sie Waffen?" "Natürlich," David replied. "Gib mir alles." David hesitated. If he declined to hand over his weapons, this rich kid would probably shoot him. He didn't like the idea of walking inside unarmed, but his goal wasn't to kill anyone. The people in the chalet were nothing but gatekeepers, just leaves on one branch of a larger tree. He needed them to accept him, to believe he shared their goals. Once they did, he could gather intelligence on the entire operation, find their strengths and weaknesses, find the men in power. Le Renouveau. He moved slowly. Never make sudden movements when a man is pointing a gun at you. Treadstone. He spread his fingers, opened the flap of his coat, and handed Gunther the loaded Glock. He thought about not disclosing the knife, but if they searched him and found it, they'd probably use it to cut his throat. So he pulled up the cuff of his slacks and removed the dagger from its scabbard and gave it to the boy. Smart move. The next thing Gunther did was sling his rifle over his shoulder, turn David around and force him against the Renault and give him a pat-down from head to toe. The kid spent more time than was necessary between David's legs and grinned as he did so. But the search was thorough. Gunther definitely would have found the knife. Then, rotating the rifle again, the young student gestured at the chalet door with the barrel. David headed that way. Another student met him at the door, armed with the same kind of rifle. This one was Mario, from Madrid, son of 2 Spanish lawyers with political connections, the top student in David's fitness class. Whenever David had seen him outside class, Mario had a different girl on his arm. He always wore a grin, like a mask, and his teeth looked especially white against the gloomy shadows of the mountain estate. "Der Professor kommt," he announced cheerily from behind his smile. "Was für ein Vergnügen." Then his smile disappeared as he said to Gunther in accented German, "Du hast ihn durchsucht." "Ja, alles klar." With a confirmation that David had been searched, Mario led him from the foyer and down a couple of steps into a vast great room with a high-angled ceiling. Lush carpet sank under his feet.